So yeah, so we're at the stage now. You've got a lot of the tools, and now it's just about applying it in particular properties and learning from it really. So I suppose that's probably what it comes down to. You obviously watch the videos now, so now's the time to start doing a few examples, and then we can then bounce ideas off each other and just learn together.
Cool.
What do you feel like you sort of want to, you know, so let's sort of thinking for the next week, you know, what do you want to sort of try and achieve over the next week? Are you know, what's sort of stopping you from getting to the next stage, I suppose?
Nothing. There is nothing actually. There's a property I wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask your opinion on.
Cool.
Just yesterday, and I thought this is interesting. But I wanted to get your opinion because it's in a cul-de-sac, so I'm not sure when you want to talk about that. If you've finished talking now.
We can go through that now. So basically, I suppose the thing is you've sort of, you know, you've got a lot of the tools to research things yourself. So, you know, have you done any of that research on those particular property yet?
No, I haven't done the research because there's a particular thing that I wanted to talk to you about, something we haven't come across yet.
Yep.
It's in a cul-de-sac, and yeah, so it's I don't know if you want to share screen, I can bring it up, or you want to type it in.
Yep, let's do that. I'll share my screen and then I can point at things forward.
I'll give you the address when you're ready.
Yep.
Number 41.
Yep.
Whysall, WHYSALL. Sorry, in Green Acres. WY, yep.
Because I suppose the other reason why I want you to be able to start practicing this and actually, you know, researching all this stuff yourself, because when we get to the point of, you know, you wanting to buy something, obviously if it's a really good deal as well, then it may not be available for very long. So you need to be able to go out there and research everything yourself, and then obviously you're welcome to come back to me and say, hey, this is what I've done, and these are the only things I don't know, and then we just clarify those things, and then you can essentially just go out and make it happen, rather than the fact that we bounce ideas off each other and then it takes longer for you to go out and research stuff. Obviously, one's going to auction, so it doesn't really matter because we've got time. But obviously, some of them might not go to auction, so then you may need to make a decision on what you want to do. Amended reserve 325 will sell Wednesday. What an opportunity. Why would you come in and say what the reserve is on this property? Doesn't make any sense whatsoever, does it? Agents are just terrible. Anyway. No easements must be sold. It's only found new homes ready to move. Great. Okay. Cool. So you haven't looked into it at all yet?
No. There's a question I got. Like the rest of the stuff I know how to do. This is something we haven't come across yet. I want to look at the block itself. So I want to show you. It's in a cul-de-sac, so it's a very small frontage. For the size of the block it's actually quite cheap, but I wanted to see whether it has subdivision potential, and I can't quite work out how much the meter frontage is.
Yep. Have you rang up council or anything yet, or have you done anything else?
I haven't done anything yet, no.
No. And have you got a copy of the title or anything, any sort of dimensions of the block or anything?
Just what's on Google Maps and just what's on RP data with the that little print screen thing that you showed me.
Yeah, I suppose probably the easiest way to get a copy of the title is to ring the agent up and he'll email it through to you straight away, like within that day type thing. So straight away you've got all the dimensions and you know everything you need to know about the property then. And so that's probably all I would do first, because obviously coming in here trying to take guesses on things is probably a bit dangerous if you're looking at buying the thing. But saying that, we can just make assumptions on things. So obviously it is, like you said, it is I'm assuming it's that sort of one just there. And the way to tell that, if you go into the all these other things we went into here, so the location browser thing. or RP data, or all these different ones are going to give you different ways of seeing what the shape of the block is. But so you can see it's that shape there. And you've got different ways you can try and measure it out. RP data, you can measure it out, and that location viewer thing, you can measure it out, and whatever the other one's called. This one, another thing you can measure out. So yeah, so these dimensions are relatively important. And then the next question is, like you're talking about what the frontage is and all that sort of stuff. If I was you, I'd just ring up council, and if something's a bit weird, just ring them up and just say, hey, Mr. Council, what is it that I can do, what I can't do, and all that sort of stuff. And they'll give you an opinion. But without doing that, let's just make the assumption. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what the council guidelines. It's just about trying to make the thing work. And so the thing with this thing is, how's it going to work? So let's say you subdivide into two. How are people going to get their car into there? It's probably the thing that I'd be considering. And obviously, imagine that there. That car is about 2.5 meters across, so it's probably only maybe 10 meters across that way. So if you were going to subdivide it, then you have to subdivide it down this way somehow, which means you can have a 5 meters either side potentially. And again, I'm making all these numbers up, so don't rely on these numbers. And like I said, it's really easy to get these numbers. Just ring the agent and say, give me a copy of the title, and then you're done. And then you don't have to take any guesses. And the benefit of all this is there's no point wasting your time on things that you don't know all the numbers for. And if it's something really easy to get a copy of, I just do that. And so that's it. Let's make the assumption it's 10 meters across there. We're going to subdivide it down the center. We're going to have one block that's going to be like this, and one block that's going to be sort of triangular shaped. And then we're going to have a 5 meter entry point. So then it's a matter of trying to work out, firstly, where the council are going to let you do that. So then you go into council guidelines and find out what their minimum block size is. And maybe they don't have any minimum frontage type thing, or maybe they do. And so that's what I'd be looking at. And then I would be, so do we know what the minimum block size is for this area, policy area zone?
3 acres, I built Torrance title blocks, and mine was 285 is what you sold them for, 280.
But what's it for this particular one would be my question. So do we know what policy area and zone and all that sort of stuff is?
I haven't looked.
No. Yeah. So I'd look at that basically. So I wouldn't make the assumption of just, even if it's this next one next door, I would still go in and just double check that, remember I did the council maps thing, and and then once we find that, we can find out the zone and then the policy area, because it may be the line goes straight down here and this one's different to this one. So I'd still, and literally it's going to take you maybe, I don't know, half an hour to go through and double check all that information, but then you've got it all and then you're really clear then. And so the thing is not so much just about the frontage, there's a whole lot of other things too, because if you know that the minimum block size is 500 square meters and this one's 600 square meters, then who cares what the frontage issue is, I suppose. So that's probably the first thing I would do, is I collect all the information relatively quickly, because you've got it all there. Because as soon as you tick one box off, you're going to have a whole lot of other boxes to tick off anyway. So it's not that hard to collect all the information at the same time. You just got it all there and just do it all at once. So imagine we're going to subdivide down here. Then the question then is let's assume that we can do the frontage, and let's assume that the minimum block size does fit within the minimum block size. Then the question is, can we make a house fit in there? And so then it's just a matter of trying to think about all the other things we talked about. So the setbacks, so from the front of the road, and then the backyard, private open space thing, and then site coverage, so the house relative to the size of the block. And so yeah, there are a whole pile of different things to consider. Because remember, we may choose to go ahead with the subdivision regardless of whether it fits within the council requirements. So yeah, maybe it doesn't fit the setbacks and a whole pile of things. But as a bit of a heads up, as far as the setbacks go, then it's the average of the houses either side. So if you go into your thing looking at that, where did that go? Back on. My Google Earth gone. No, it's a bit annoying. My Google Earth disappeared. I don't know where it went. Doesn't matter. So it's generally the average of the houses either side. So in this situation, the reason they make it the average of the houses either side is because they just want the front to look really nice when you drive along the street, that all the houses are even. So in this situation here, they're all going around in a circle anyway. So that whole the logic of the setback thing doesn't really matter as much, because who really cares, because it's going around the corner anyway. So I wouldn't be as concerned about that. I think more of your issue is you're going to be able to have to be able to fit a car out the front of the garage, because you're going to need off-street parking for one car. So you're going to need undercover parking for one car, and you're going to need off-street parking for one car. So let's say the house was here, and then you have to be able to park a car off of here somehow, or park a car somewhere, and you need a garage somewhere. So, that's why all these dimensions really matter, and that's why I really want to get a copy of the title and stuff to work out how long that line is there. Because then we can think, okay, our car is 6 meters long, and we need to fit 2 cars in there. So we need to be off the boundary. So we need, we need at least 12 meters just to fit our car there. Plus, we need a backyard behind that. So then you can start to see whether it's all going to work or whether it's not going to work. So, and relatively quickly, once you have all these dimensions, you're going to say, okay, well, that doesn't work, or it does work. And then straight away, you can just ignore this one and just move on to the next one. So, yeah, that's probably, in a perfect world, the agent would do their job correctly, and they just include a copy of the site plan in the advert. But it's not a perfect world, unfortunately, so we just have to collect the information ourselves, really. And the other thing, obviously, we can see it's a 616 square metre block. So, from doing your subdivisions that, 300 square metres is a pretty half-decent sized block to be able to fit most things in there. But that's when it's a relatively square block that you can fit a house on, whereas this one here is a crazy shaped block, which is going to be really hard to try and fit a house on there. And so when you've only got 300 square metres and you've got a weird shaped block, it's going to make, you haven't got much forgiveness to try and deal with the hassle associated with all these weird shapes and stuff. So that's my other concern. So yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I just didn't like, I've never come across a block this shape.
Yeah.
And I was like, from your experience, obviously I know that we need to get dimensions. I know that I need to do my research, and I know how to do that.
Yep.
I just wanted to ask your opinion on the shape of the block, because we haven't really spoken about anything like this before.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about the shape of the block, assuming everything works. But,
yeah, okay.
The dimensions matter, and the council requirements for what the minimum block size is matters, and all that stuff matters, and that's the shape of the blocks irrelevant, assuming all the other boxes are ticked. So that's why you really have to know the dimensions of the block, and you really have to know what the council requirements are, the policy area and the zoning and all that sort of stuff. And then if it fits within all that, then the shape of the block doesn't matter. You can see this one down here. They've done a weird shape of a block here with a narrower frontage and a bigger back end. But for whatever reason, the block was big enough to make that work. And there'll be lots of little examples of weird things like that somewhere. There'll be some other ones where they've done subdivisions or cul-de-sac things. But yeah, I'm not anti the shape of the block. I'm probably more about just if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't, I suppose. So unfortunately, you're not going to know that until you get the other information, or the dimensions and the policy area and stuff. So.
Okay.
So yeah, unfortunately, I know it seems like hassle, but you sort of have to get the information. Like, I'd probably just get that first. If you see a block on the internet and it looks good, just say, hey, this one looks good, 325 green acres. I can probably, and if you know your area pretty well, you can knock your house down, subdivide, and then the blocks of land are worth 200 grand each, or 250 each, or whatever you decide. So that's worth 500,000, and then suddenly it's worth this, and blah 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 blah. And you go, well, that looks relatively profitable. What things do I have to think about? And then you go onto Google Earth, and then you see that it's a weird shaped block. Then you go, hey, I wonder what the dimensions of the block are. And then you look through here to see whether this guy's giving you the dimensions, and the answer is no. So the first thing I do is send an email through this guy and just say, hey, can you send me through a copy of the title plan? And he'll send it through to you. And that's it. You don't even have to, like, literally, I don't know how long I spent, 2 minutes on that. And then I don't do anything else on it until I get a copy of the title plan, because I know that's pretty important. And so, because I wouldn't even necessarily go in, the area relatively well, that you can possibly subdivide it. But if you didn't know what the area was and what the minimum block sizes and stuff are, you might, maybe just check on the council thing and just see what the minimum block size for the area is. Go into the development plan and look in the council maps, and then go and find the policy area and stuff. at least you can see whether you can subdivide it in based on the minimum block size, but you still going to have to wait for the plan to come through.
I'll forward through an email. I'll get him to send it through.
Yeah.
I've actually, that's just off of where I used to live. I used to live off of Weissel, so.
Yeah, you did too. I remember that. So I would, so you can see how, and then you just move on, and then you just don't even have to think about it again because you can't do anything else until then. So, and then you just move on, look at something else, and then, and eventually that email will come back, or maybe not. Maybe make a note just to remind you to follow him up, because he probably won't get back to you. And then, then just move on to the next one, and move on to the next one, and then, but until you get that information, it's probably nothing else you can do, really. But saying that, if you want some feedback on what I think is going to happen, and again, I wouldn't assume I know anything about anything because I've done no research whatsoever in this area and I have no idea. So I wouldn't rely on, I wouldn't go off driving past the house, and I wouldn't go, doing too much effort until I've got that information, because otherwise I could be wasting my time. So I'd suggest you probably don't do a similar sort of thing. But, as a gut feel, I think it's pretty unlikely you'll be able to fit a cut house in there. That's my problem. I'm not so concerned about fitting a house in this one if you subdivided it, but trying to fit a house in there, that'll be my concern. So because as I mentioned, you're going to be able to fit a garage in here plus another car parking out the front. Like, you're running out of space, would be my concern. So I'm not saying disregard it. I'm just saying that's something I'd be predicting from the start, but that's going to be a problem for me, and that's why I'd be saying, hey, I wonder what these dimensions are. But I think it's probably not going to work out for you, but I wouldn't.
No worries. I wanted to know your opinion on the thing and what I needed to do from the shape of the block and what I needed to do. So
but I think you should be more focused on building your skills around analysing a development, rather than this, and focusing on doing the same thing every single time. And so obviously the first thing you do is look on realestate.com, which you've done. The next thing I do is, find out what the policy area and zoning is, and which you haven't done yet. And then the next thing I do is get dimensions of the block, which you haven't done yet. And then you start to narrow things down. But otherwise, if you and things will slowly get ticked away as they go. But I'll just do the same thing every single time and follow that process so that you don't miss anything and you're not wasting your time looking into things which aren't going to happen anyway. Probably my advice.
What was the first thing? The policy thing?
Remember we go into the council, we go into, so this one here, we got whatever info here, click on that here, and it comes in here and tells us that it's a particular council area. So come down here somewhere, map, index, suburbs, councils, Port Adelaide, Enfield.
Yeah.
So remember we come in here and we go Port Adelaide, and then Port Adelaide Enfield development plan, and then you just go and find that, and then you go and find the in my other video I told you was, if you're trying to source a development site, I suggested you pick a particular area and get to know that area pretty well, and then you don't necessarily have to do this every time because you know all your zoning and stuff, but in the sense that you don't know what the policy areas and stuff, then you have to go through this process. And this is going to download, then you scroll down and find it in the different council maps. Remember we looked at the council maps? Yeah. And then what policy area and zoning it is, and then you go up and find the zone and all that sort of stuff, and then you'll find out what the minimum block size is and all the other stuff, and then you know that, and then you're good. And then the next thing is just making sure your dimensions. So then you firstly can find out whether it fits within the requirements to be able to subdivide, because really the dimensions don't even matter until if the minimum block size is 450 square meters and this one's 613, then it's probably not going to happen anyway, maybe. So so that's when the dimensions aren't really that big a deal either. So but I'd start with that, find out what the council zoning is first, and then just keep ticking things off as you go. And and then obviously we talked about the other things, which is like the services, the water and the gas and electricity, make sure there's going to be no issues with that, and any other stuff we need to think about. When you contact the agent, he's going to give you a copy of the title so you can find out whether there's any easements or anything on there. So I just follow that process every time. And the cool thing is, once you know an area pretty well, the process is going to be quicker because you know the area pretty well, so you don't really have to worry about as much the council requirements. You can then just focus on, just getting a copy of the title from the agent, and then just checking if there's any other surprises. But
okay, cool. Well, what's my homework today?
I would just practice doing finding a property and going through that whole process of analysing a project. So whether it wants to be this one or another one or anyone, but then when I ask you, what the policy area is, you go, it's this, and the minimum block size is this, and the frontage is this, and because this. And then when I start issues, you want to give me a property to do so that I can? Yeah, it's up to you. If you want to start looking for particular properties to source a development now, then because obviously you're looking on the internet, so I'm assuming you're wanting to find development sites, so you might as well just source one that's a real one. It's up to you. But if you just want to have another practice one, really everyone's a practice one. Like everyone you do is a practice one, so you might as well practice on a real one than me just getting a random property. But it's up to you.
Cool. I'm happy with that. I'll do it that way.
So yeah, but you really need to know the answers to all these questions, because they're essentially, if you bring to me a property and say, "Hey, I'm looking at this one," first thing I'm going to say is, what's the minimum block size and all those other questions, and what's the dimensions of the block, and because they all matter, and they're not really very negotiable. Really, you need all those information. So.
No worries.
Then we'll essentially have one or two things we're not clear of then. So like this one here, once you've done all that other stuff, then you say, hey, everything else seems to work, but the thing I'm concerned about is the frontage. And then we can discuss how we resolve the frontage thing. But if you can't subdivide it because it doesn't fit within the minimum block size, and there's some other issues, or you don't know what the dimensions are and stuff, then it's really hard to work that stuff out. But so yeah, that's pretty much it. And so the other thing to think about is, and we talked about just trying to find an area that you want to be your area. So my suggestion to you is, in the other video, the last one I sent through to you was pick a particular area that you want to be an expert in. And then I'd be interested if you came back to me saying, hey, I've decided this is going to be my area, and this is why I think this is my area. And so that may be that, houses are selling for $350 for crappy old houses, and yet I can sell a block of land for $250,000 each. But I can subdivide some of these ones because of the zoning requirements. I can subdivide them to 3 if I do X, Y, Z. And then suddenly it's worth $750. I'm only paying $350 for it or something. So just pick a particular area, and then I'd be interested in finding out what your logic behind why that particular area is your area. And then we can sit down and discuss whether it's possible to find a development in that area. Because you might say, hey, I like this area, this is really cool, but if the numbers don't stack up for one property, then there's probably not going to stack up for other ones either. And you're probably in an area that maybe is not really a good area at that particular point in time as development opportunities, because maybe the existing house is selling for too much, or maybe the blocks of land aren't selling for enough to make it worth your while, or whatever. So they're probably my 2 tasks. So go and source some development sites, and then maybe pick a particular area that you think, when you start sourcing some, you're going to start finding some that are going to work and some that aren't, and then you'll start to, and probably you have a bias towards a particular suburb, so you will start to say, this is my suburb. But I'd be interested to, see whether that is the best area for you to be looking at stuff in, and maybe we refine it and maybe go the next suburb over because it's different zoning or something, or because prices are slightly deeper to buy there, but you sell the blocks of land for the same price as the one next door or something.
Yeah, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. All right, let me go do some research, and I'll
you can do as many of these as you want. You don't have to just do, obviously you can just do one, but my advice to you is just look at it as a learning experience, and the more you do, the more you're going to learn. It doesn't cost you any money, and so this is a lot cheaper way of learning than buying things and doing subdivisions. And then we can each property is going to have its own unique things, which are going to be issues, and then the more we do, the more we're going to learn from each individual property. And then and then likewise too, by doing that, you're going to start to narrow down particular areas. You're going to start to say, hey, I can't find anything in this area. And then we might try that suburb over, and then we start to find some better opportunities around there, or maybe it's slightly off, but then we can buy something a bit cheaper for some reason. So we can start to really hone it down and get really detailed on particular areas and then really focus on it.
Easy. Okay, no problem.
Cool. So that's basically it. So today, so yeah, just do as many of these, finding as many properties on there which you think you can subdivide as possible, and then do all the research up front, and then we can chat about them. Or quite quickly, you're going to exclude a whole pile anyway, so we're probably not going to chat about any of them. We're really only going to chat about the ones that look like they've got potential, but they've got particular issues, which this one might be one of those ones. I'm just saying we don't have enough information to decide on that. And then the other thing is narrow down a particular area, and then we can look at that area and justify why it's a good opportunity or not, and then decide to make that an area or maybe exclude that area.
Okay, no worries. I think I've got a couple of areas that I want to study now, so.
Cool. And obviously, ideally, we'd be liking to, it'd be preferable to buy in areas where you can subdivide into 3. So subdivide into 3 may be that they're 3 skinny blocks facing the road, or it may be, one house at the front and 2 houses at the back, which means they're slightly bigger blocks. So that's where we're going to get the best bang for our buck. If we're subdividing 1 to 2, then you're just going to need to make sure that numbers are going to work with the price you're paying for it, and the price you're selling the land for is, going to make the numbers work. So, but if you can see areas where there's possibility to do 1 into 3, then the numbers are more likely to work a bit better for that.
No worries. Thank you so much.
Cool, buddy. So, do you want me just to give you some time to have a play with this and stuff? So we'll just leave it until next Monday we catch up again, or?
Yeah, I need some time. I need to do some study, and I've got to do some research.
Yeah. Cool.
You got me thinking. That last video, about the medium price range and stuff, how it was 430 in Adelaide and stuff. I've got to work out where I want to go. That was new to me. That was very interesting.
Okay.
So I like that. I gained some knowledge from that video, I guess you can say.
No, that's good. Cool, man.
So,
yeah. So and the cool thing is the areas that you're familiar with, fortunately, happen to be within that area that those requirements relatively well. You like the northeastern suburbs, which are relatively close to the city, and they're relatively cheap, and they're council are quite pro development, and so you've got a lot of things which are ticking your boxes. You just need to know the area a lot better.
Yeah. All right, no problem. All right, we'll talk next week. If I have any questions, I'll message you throughout the week.
Yeah, but just definitely make sure you start doing a heap of them. You can see how quickly you can see that one there. I could get the information to answer all my questions within not very long, 10 minutes, 15 minutes stuff. So it doesn't have to take hours and hours. You don't need to spend hours. You just need to tip through each thing as you go.
No problem. All right, easy done. We'll talk next week a bit more about it.
Cool. Thanks, buddy. Talk soon.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.